Burning down in California. Sure, 298-765-4321. Right now, the national. Right now on the National Weather Desk, non-stop storms. Preparations are underway for even more rain, snow, flooding from California.
Our priority is to life. We're focusing on the protection of life.
To getting sandbags in Utah.
We're just trying to make sure we have enough for the neighborhood because we're bound to need them.
Tick season is almost here. Are you ready to protect your family and pets?
I found 2 ticks on his face, being wintertime.
How super scoopers are helping fight western wildfires.
Most people know about policemen and firefighters and ambulances, but they don't know a whole lot about what can come in the air to help them when they have a fire.
And what prompted an astrophysicist to say this.
Remember the rule: next time you see something weird in the sky, it's never aliens.
From our nation's capital, this is the National Weather Desk.
Good morning and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm Angela Brown. Another powerful atmospheric river is bearing down on California. Keep in mind the state is still saturated from at least 11 atmospheric rivers so far this season. And in Crestline, California, it's already snowing again. That's the town in San Bernardino Mountains that has been hammered with up to 7 feet of snow this weekend. Another 4 feet could fall in the higher elevations. Wind gusts on lower mountain slopes can reach 90 miles an hour. All that snow and rain is falling on soil that is overly saturated and vulnerable to rapid runoff. Central and Southern California will feel it the most. The heavy rain, snow, and winds are expected to cause power outages this morning. The race is on to get ahead of any of this possible flooding. Responders across California are rushing to Tulare County, just south of Fresno, to prepare for the fallout after another major storm. This is some roads in farmland are already covered, you can see here, with water. Sophia Lesios is in Fresno with the details.
We have good plans in place.
Hundreds of people from across the state, from Northern California to Orange County, have come to Tulare County to lend a helping hand.
And our priority is to life. We're focusing on the protection of life. Property is secondary. However, what we're dealing with coming into our farmlands and that devastation, we're focusing on the protection of those farmlands.
Farmlands like these, which are currently underwater. A long list of roads and bridges are already washed out from floodwaters in Tulare County. In situations like this, CAL FIRE says to take any evacuation order and warning seriously.
We're not telling this to them to inconvenience them. We just want people to be safe.
Evacuation orders have been issued so far, with over 23,000 structures threatened by floods. That's according to CAL FIRE Tulare unit.
The severe weather that is flooding parts of California could also impact the cost of dairy products. California is a large producer of dairy products, and now land used for grazing is flooded, and that could impact more than 60% of the cow's feed. The USDA's weekly dairy market report says that the snow in Northern California is delaying work and impacting delivery at some milk processing plants. Meanwhile, this week in Utah is also starting out wet with a dose of wintry weather. It is expected to be a stormy week, and flooding could follow across that state. Lincoln Graves is in Salt Lake City with more.
Across the state, March has been snowy and wet. From southern Utah,
with the storm we had this last week, it filled our reservoirs. So a couple of our reservoirs are overflowing.
To parts farther north.
Here in northern Utah, we experienced those rainstorms and that snow melt last Friday and Saturday, which created some what we call sheet flooding in some various neighborhoods.
More water is on the way this week. Rain at lower elevations, snow at higher ones. The water is a resource we desperately want more of, but it's turned deadly and destructive recently. In Salt Lake County over the weekend, people were getting sandbags with an eye toward spring runoff.
One of our neighbors came down and picked up some sandbags a couple of days ago, made the rest of us aware of it, and so we're just trying to make sure we have enough for the neighborhood, because we're bound to need them.
Sandbags are on the minds of those in southern Utah, too. But so are the dangers of recreation. High water led to 2 deaths and several different rescue operations last week. Emergency officials are hoping to avoid any more of that.
But during the time when we're flooding and we're responding, stay away from those areas. It makes it hard to respond, and it's dangerous. So stay away from those areas and be responsible.
Advice to stay safe, but there's also advice to avoid minor or nuisance flooding.
If you see that the storm drains in your community are blocked, maybe there's leaves in there from last fall or something like that, clean those out and make sure those storm drains are clear. That will help with some of the localized flooding events.
And despite all that flooding, global demand for fresh water will outweigh supply by the year 2030. That's according to a new report from the Global Commission on the Economics of Water. Experts say people are misusing and polluting water and changing the global hydrological cycle through human-caused climate change. They urge the government should stop subsidizing water overuse in agriculture and stop letting industries pollute the water. The report comes ahead of the United Nations Water Summit. And as we all know, spring has officially begun, and that means more bugs. One bug that can cause some serious problems are ticks, and they have found a way to survive even in the early part of spring when temperatures can still be really very cold. Joanna Boris has more.
Tiny ticks are starting to emerge as the sun shines and the temperature warms up. Kevin Hoba from Warwick says he pulled 2 off his dog recently.
One last week and one the week before on my dog. I've had him now for about 6 months, and I didn't have any on him, last fall. But, I was surprised when I found 2 ticks on his face, being wintertime.
Thomas Mather, professor of public health entomology at the University of Rhode Island and tick expert, says the bugs have learned to survive harsh winters when we have them.
They dump some of the water out of their cells. So basically like taking air out of a tire. So if there's less water to freeze and in their cells, it won't rupture the cell membrane.
Mather says right now people are mostly seeing larger adult black-legged ticks, commonly called deer ticks.
They come out in October and November. They kind of get quiet when it gets cool in the winter, and they come back out in the springtime.
The females die off after laying eggs that hatch into nymphs come summer. These start out the size of a poppy seed and are likely to carry Lyme disease. Mather says start planning protection now.
You could be stocking up on permethrin repellent to start treating your shoes in another month or so. Summer camp, you could be thinking about getting the clothes that the kids will wear treated.
Baseball is in the near future. The season starts on March 30th. Meteorologist John Gunn brings science to the ball field and explains how weather can impact early season home runs.
Well, spring is here, and that means the beginning of baseball season. And early in the season, oftentimes pitchers dominate. Offensive units, they can't really seem to get as many hits early on in the season, not as many homers. Well, weather could be the reason why. You see, early in the season, we have cold air. That cold air is more dense. So there's more air molecules, and the ball has to push that air out of the way. It makes it harder to get that ball out of the ballpark. However, when it's warmer in the summer, the air is more humid, you've got more water in the atmosphere, but the air is less heavy, and that ball has less drag on it. So you see that ball flying out of the ballpark more often in the summer during those hot summer months when the air is a lot more humid. So if you're watching baseball early in the season and you see there just aren't as many homers, weather certainly could be the reason.
You know, and spring doesn't only mean baseball, it's also tornado season. The U.S. sees more tornadoes than anywhere else, but why is that? To find out, we turn to meteorologist Natalie Walters in Dayton, Ohio.
Why does the United States see more tornadoes per year than any other country in the world? Well, the first thing we have is the Gulf of Mexico, which sends warm, moist air northward right into the United States. Now, the next thing we have is warm and dry air from the desert southwest, and we also have cold and dry air coming in from Canada and being swept through the Rocky Mountains. And of course, all of those ingredients are met up over the flat land of the Plains states, which we know as Tornado Alley.
And if you want to see more content like this, be sure to follow us on social media. We are on all of your favorite platforms. We post the latest content from our 200 meteorologists. Just search the National Weather Desk or scan the QR code in the bottom left corner of your screen. Humanity is on thin ice. That's according to the new report by the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Scientists say to prevent the worst harms of climate change, the world needs to slash carbon pollution and fossil fuel use by nearly 2/3 by 2035. The report finds greenhouse gas emissions in 2019 were 12% higher than in 2010. Experts say countries must fast track their efforts and reach net zero emissions by 2040. And coming up on the National Weather Desk, is about to get warmer, and that means more wildfires. We'll take a look at what state is doing to prepare for the upcoming wildfire season.
Hi everyone, I'm meteorologist Charlie Lopresti. We look at the Northeast. We have a pretty nice looking day on tap in the Northeast after a chilly start. Temps should warm into the low to mid 50s. There will be more clouds over northern parts of New England with a little front that's slowly sagging to the south. Now parts of New England will stay in the 40s on Wednesday, another nice day. But look at New York and also northern New Jersey. We'll be in the 50s to in some cases near 60 degrees. Our next round of wet weather should be Wednesday night and more likely on Thursday.
I'm meteorologist Jonathan Myers, and here's a look at the mid-Atlantic region. Going to start off with some cold temperatures in the mid-30s to near 40. Lunchtime on our Tuesday, there you go, back well into the 50s, even some 60s during the afternoon. So this is going to be a really nice day with fair weather, high pressure, our fair weather friend. That's our weather maker for the day. So sunshine and somewhat milder temperatures, and it gets even warmer from there out. It looks like could have some 70s by later on this week. That's the scene here.
Good Tuesday morning. I'm meteorologist Michael Arenberg, and here's a look at your Southeast regional forecast for this Tuesday. Mostly sunny skies from much of the Southeast, Florida, the Carolinas, and Georgia. Could be some showers over the central and middle Mississippi River Valley ahead of the next weather system, and clouds will spill into the Carolinas. But most of the Southeast will be dry. Afternoon high temperatures in the 60s from I-10 north, 65 in Pensacola, 62 Atlanta, pleasant 70s and low 80s over central and South Florida.
You are watching the National Weather Desk.
Well, it's a name you may start hearing more often, Jamie Bavici. She was recently appointed as a Deputy Administrator of NOAA. She also serves as Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Oceans and Atmosphere. It's a big title, in a big role. She recently spoke with Emily Gracie about what she'll be doing.
My core responsibilities are working with NOAA's oceans, coasts, and fisheries programs to make sure our oceans and coasts are resilient and our fisheries resources are healthy and sustainable. I'm also excited to be involved in the agency's implementation of the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and Inflation Reduction Act. These are truly unique opportunities for our agency to catalyze community impact and climate resilience.
Can you tell me what you did for New York City?
My role in New York City was to serve as the director of the Mayor's Office of Climate Resiliency, and I implemented over a $20 billion portfolio of resilience projects focused on sea level rise, coastal storm surge, extreme heat, and extreme precipitation. And we were essentially working to prepare New Yorkers who are most vulnerable for the impacts of climate change.
How do you work to make everyone resilient to climate change?
We're really focused on, at NOAA, improving NOAA's service delivery to help community partners become more resilient, climate ready, and prosperous. We're also focused on making sure that we're supporting these communities with funding, not only for implementation, but for capacity building. We want to meet these communities where they're at.
What kind of holes are you seeing in the system now and holes in the system back, say, around Hurricane Katrina?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, I think during Hurricane Katrina, this whole field of climate resilience was completely new. We weren't really talking about proactively reducing the risk to these kinds of disasters. We were just responding to the last one. I think the unique moment that we're in now is that we actually have funding to deploy, large amounts of funding, historic levels of funding, to address these challenges proactively and with an equity lens.
Mysterious streaks of light were seen across the sky of California over the weekend, shocking those who saw them. Many took to social media questioning what exactly the bright lights were, but the answer was not out of this world, as many may have assumed. Sophia Lesios has more.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Look at that back one, has like flames coming. A spectacular sight to see. Mysterious streaks of light were seen across California Friday night. No, it wasn't aliens. It was space junk.
This particular object was a piece of equipment that actually used to be bolted onto the space station.
Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysicist Dr. Jonathan McDowell says the pieces seen on fire in the sky was a Japanese radio antenna from the International Space Station that was retired in 2017.
The Japanese Space Agency just shoved it overboard from the space station and just abandoned it in space, orbiting the Earth. And its orbit slowly decayed, as we say. It got closer and closer to the Earth until, and it was jettisoned in February of 2020. It's taken 3 years for it to come all the way down and burn up.
Stunned spectators had no clue what the bright debris was because there was no warning. Astronomers say they couldn't predict exactly where the object would have entered the Earth because it was moving at 17,000 miles an hour. But Dr. McDowell says there's about 20,000 objects orbiting the Earth right now. So this sort of thing is not uncommon.
Things like this re-enter pretty frequently.
Dr. McDowell, leaving stargazers with this important note.
Remember the rule next time you see something weird in the sky. It's never aliens.
Well, it's officially spring, but for folks who live in the mountain areas, there's also still March, and cold fronts during this month are not uncommon. In areas like this, it may not be safe time to start planting, at least not yet. Taylor Thompson explains from Asheville.
Gardening experts say here in the mountains is one of the hardest places to forecast the weather, but that people shouldn't get ahead of themselves in planting early because cold fronts in March are common. Jesse Israel and Sons Nursery and Garden Center has been home to the mountain since 1982. Co-owner Alan Israel says he grew up in the store.
We've seen a little bit of everything. We've seen warm springs where we don't have to cover. We've seen springs where we're frosting towards the end of May.
He says in this business, you have to take every year as its own.
A lot of warm temperatures early in February. Hitting 70s in February, that's abnormal. So a lot of plants are breaking dormancy now. So they're pushing out earlier by a few weeks than what they would normally be doing. They've lost some of their dormancy and the sap's flowing. So, it's going to be a little bit more danger to them. Oh, we watch the weather all the time. So we're, getting ahead of it all the time. We're, We've got greenhouses, cold frames that we heat at night, so we're protecting all that plant material.
Israel calls this time of year the spring shuffle.
We're always putting it out, moving it back in. We want to protect those plants the best way that we can for the gardeners. And still, get the whole season of planting in.
In the mountains, there's a safe time to start planting.
We've always said Mother's Day is our fairly safe date for planting tender veggies. Middle of March is ideal for planting things like broccoli and cabbages, but not at 17 degrees. Getting the warm spells, and then you're going to get the late freezes. We're not safe till middle of May.
And in Japan, scientists have discovered a new species of orchid. The pink and white blooms of the flower are so delicate, so fragile that they look like they were spun from glass. Look at this. According to scientists, it's an important reminder that unknown species are often living just right under our noses. The findings was published in the Journal of Plant Research. As fire season gets closer out west, special preparations are underway to make sure equipment is in tip-top shape when flames actually do break out. Andrew Nomura from Kingman, Arizona, got the chance to check out life-saving plans.
Well, officials with the National Park Service tells us that fire season is really year-round now, but as we move closer to the critical and crucial summer months, fire crews are preparing to attack the flames not only by the ground, but through the air with the help of super scoopers. It's not a bird, it's a super scooper, and these aircrafts have become more and more important when it comes to fighting wildfires, especially in Nevada, where we see hundreds each year. Here in Arizona, we got the chance to see a couple of these planes up close and personal. Planes can hold up to 1,400 gallons of water and can fill up within seconds. As we grow closer to the summer months, officials with the National Park Service say they are vital when it comes to battling flames.
They're really effective at not only reducing the heat of the wildfire, but actually working to contain those wildfires in those grass environments that are very steep terrain, where we may not be able to actually put crews into.
The planes are operated by the Burger Aerospace Company. They will be doing test circles at Lake Mead Friday. CEO and owner Tim Sheehy says more people should know about the aircrafts and how they can save lives.
It's not just a summertime threat anymore. It's not just a rural threat. Cities, towns, and can face year-round threats of wildfire now. So it's important for citizens to know what's available to fight those fires. Most people know about policemen and firefighters and ambulances, but they don't know a whole lot about what can come in the air to help them when they have a fire. So,
okay, max power.
And time now for a short break. But before we go, a look at Utah from above.
Well, a very good Tuesday morning, everyone. I'm meteorologist Andrew Buckmichael. Take a look at your weather story across the Midwest. We've got some rain starting to move into the south today. Snow up in the Dakotas still, even though it's the first full day of spring. As we move forward, rain showers slowly moving their way closer to the Ohio Valley and Great Lakes, getting some of that snow across the far north there. Still rain across a lot of the Ohio Valley as we head into your Thursday, looking at the potential for some heavy rain and potential flooding later in the week.
Good morning, I'm meteorologist Alex Garcia. Here's a look at your regional weather. Starting off with some clouds and fog down towards South Texas. A little bit of rain out across Oklahoma. We'll be watching that rain move out toward the east toward Arkansas today as we see a warm front, dry line, and a cold front begin to make its way down. Meanwhile, all that warm Gulf air is going to warm things up from South Texas all the way back up into Amarillo into Oklahoma. We'll be seeing 60s and 70s today. I'm meteorologist Alex Garcia, and that's a look at your regional weather.
I'm meteorologist Rebecca Stevenson. Here's what's happening across the West. Cooler temperatures definitely in the 50s to the 40s as you head southward into Nevada and to Utah. And that's where we've got heavy mountain snow. A second storm slamming into California today, bringing 2 to 4 feet on already record snowpack, more mountain snow, and 1 to 2 inches of rain with wind gusts from Anaheim to San Diego, 50 to almost 80 miles an hour. That's the scene from here.
Weather Window, presented by the National Weather Desk.
Check out nature's artwork. This windshield became a canvas for frost during a recent cold snap in Bristol, Tennessee. Meanwhile, it's bluebonnet time in Texas. The state flower usually blooms from late March to early April. They grow fine in natural areas, but they line major highways and roads because of beautification programs started in the 1930s.
Want to see your weather photos and videos on TV? Click Chime In on this station's website to share.
It's spring. As things get warmer, sunburn may become top of mind. But what about cloudy days? Meteorologist Aaron Zahn has more.
With people getting outside more, you might be wondering, is it possible to get a sunburn on a cloudy day? Well, according to the American Academy of Dermatology, even on cloudy days, up to 80% of the sun's harmful rays can get through the clouds to cause skin damage. The CDC says those UV rays can actually reflect off of surfaces like water, cement, sand, and snow. And Columbia University has a report that says that clouds tend to actually randomize the direction of incoming radiation. So certain types of clouds can actually make you get less protection from your hat on a cloudy day than on a sunny one.
And thank you so much for joining us. Tomorrow on the National Weather Desk, we'll take a look at what California is doing to help improve local salmon populations. I'm Angela Brown. Make it a great Tuesday, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow.